Folks, why we might be cooked is because long-term holders are selling Bitcoin. And the question is always, how low can we go? Well, it turns out the answer is very, very low. Although not that unsurprising, honestly. Bitcoin, like long-term holders, have recently sold off a whole lot. They've offloaded 400,000 Bitcoin. That's almost an entire MicroStrategy's worth of Bitcoin, about 2/3 of a MicroStrategy's worth of Bitcoin. So that goes to show you how much MicroStrategy could devastate us if they decided to offload. And we could drop to 72K, but as low as 60K. There's definitely like selling by long-term holders, and that triggers capitulation by short-term holders. And of course, that has the added effect of liquidating perps, liquidating leverage, and getting margin called. So that's all working together to pwn crypto price as we look at it. So in the past 30 days, long-term holders have sold over 400,000 Bitcoin. Like I said, 2/3 of a MicroStrategy's worth of Bitcoin. And of course, short-term Bitcoin holders has panic sold $3 billion at a loss. Short-term people are looking for basically short-term profits. So when they see like the long-term trend going down and long-term people liquidating, they're of course going to sell as well. So that basically puts Bitcoin's rising wedge at 72K. But if that fails, we can drop as low as 60K. Remember, in the mid-low 70s is where we were after Trump put the tariffs on in April, but we never fell to as low as 60K. Of course, right now we're at $101,000. $100,000 has been a very, very solid resistance. But if that so breaks, I think the next line down is about 95 to 92 at this point. Of course, 400,000 Bitcoin has basically sold us down from a high of 126,000 to about $100,000. Now, if they were to sell more, let's say 200,000 more, I don't think it would only be half the effect because we've broken through a lot of the resistances, and I'm not really sure once we move down past 100,000 what the next resistance actually is, or if there's that many resistances altogether. So the next 200,000 Bitcoin, if it's actually offloaded, could actually hurt more than the past 400,000. Remember, crypto is all about resistances and supports, and we've broken through so many. So if there's not that many left, we could easily go down to 70K if we offload another 200,000. Add that to the panic spot selling of Bitcoin by short-term holders, and you do have a setup for 60K or possibly less. You look at Bitcoin accumulation and selling at this point. You look at basically where we are. This is 2022. This is now. You look at accumulations basically from April until essentially August, and then after August, it's actually been way down. Now, it's not as bad as last year's selling or even the year before selling, but that's because it may only have begun. If you look at this, people sold from basically September, October of 24, September, October of 24, all the way up until maybe April of 25. With one small blip in there, that's probably like the inauguration. So like the long-term holders have actually been selling ever since August, and the selling right now is accelerating. We're still in the acceleration selling phase, and that could definitely be pretty devastating. Analyzing the LTH supply chain, crypto quant analyst Martin said that on a rolling 30-day basis, the supply has decreased by a net of 405,000 Bitcoin, worth around 42.3 billion at current market prices today. This represents almost a 2% of the total supply, said crypto marketing commentator TFTC in response to Martin's analysis, adding, Bitcoin is in a material supply distribution phase, and the price is still holding strong above $100,000. They said so that's actually being optimistic. And they also said the fact that the market can absorb this amount of sell pressure without nuking 30 to 50% is a positive signal for Bitcoin. Now, the 30 to 50%, we haven't gotten that, but we have gotten a 20% downturn. And as I've said, the most concerning thing is we've broken through a lot of the big resistances, and there may not be that many more resistances on the way downward. Still, short-term holders were also under pressure as they sent over 26,800 Bitcoin, worth about $3 billion, to exchanges at a loss over the last 3 days. So the short-term capitulation is only speeding up. And of course, that's because we've had a lot of liquidations and a lot of selling over the last couple of days, which does not look good. The activity highlights a familiar behavioral pattern in which short-term holders, often referred to as weak hands, tend to panic sell during market dips, frequently incurring losses. And that's exactly what's happening. But I'm afraid that if the market keeps downturning, more short-term holders will lose confidence and it'll dip even more. So the weekly chart shows BTC USD validating a falling wedge. So if you look at this particular graph right here, it is kind of a falling wedge. I mean, if you're really into chart reading, obviously you have a falling wedge right here that targets $72,000. And that represents a 30% decline from the current price. You can see we kind of had a big rise here, and this goes back all the way down to basically September, where we started coming up, and we hadn't here, but I think we might actually match this wedge down, and we would target $70-something thousand. So definitely not a great sign right now, but that obviously doesn't always happen. As divergence between rising prices and falling RSI usually indicates weakness in the prevailing uptrend, prompting traders to sell more at local highs as profit-taking intensifies and buyer exhaustion sets in. Now, we've discussed how the demand for Bitcoin has actually fallen below the amount mined, so there's a glut of supply, which could definitely force us down again. Maybe institutions will buy it back up soon, but not quite yet. So the thing is, the technicals definitely don't actually look good, and the sentiment definitely doesn't look good. And with the government still being closed, by the ways, I don't think elections this week will actually trigger the government to open again. I think a lot of the GOP is hoping that now, since the Democrats actually swept the elections, they don't really have anything to hold on for the this government shutdown, and they'll cave. I don't think that's going to happen. If anything, the elections have emboldened the Democrats, and it's telling them that they're actually winning the shutdown battle. So I don't think that's actually going to lean in that direction. So we might be shut down for several more weeks unless the GOP uses the nuclear option. But what that's saying is that more government paychecks are going to be missed. That means less people have money to actually buy crypto. I'm assuming that although not a lot of government people bought crypto, a certain subset of them actually did buy crypto, and now those people are not going to have money. Now, the worst thing is if those people already had crypto, now that since they're not getting their paychecks, they might need to sell some of that crypto to make ends meet. Remember, many Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So missing out on one or two paychecks, that might have to get them to sell some of their more risk assets like cryptocurrency. Now, I'm not really sure how much that actually plays through, but if you thought people didn't have money then, well, now that they're not getting paychecks, they definitely don't have money now. And that could actually have contributed to some of the panic selling because some of those guys were probably short-term investors of crypto. Remember, crypto is a fairly small part of the entire market, so it only takes a fairly small amount of the entire population to start selling that crypto to actually move the market. So, some of those government workers may need to liquidate some assets just to make ends meet. They sell the crypto, it panics, it drops even more. And basically, we have this feedback loop that gets us all the way down into 70K or so, which is definitely a huge problem. Now, it's not a huge problem for me because I don't really leverage. I just spot buy, so I can just hold on until the market actually kicks back up. But if you don't spot buy, if you actually don't spot buy and you are a margin trader or a leverage trader, then a sudden downturn like this would definitely affect you. And I think a lot of those people are getting liquidated, which exacerbates the speed of the market falling because obviously liquidations are a huge part of the market going both ways. There are some rumors that there are a lot of shorts stacking up below 100,000 that we can liquidate them all and go back up. And while that's possible, I'm not really sure if that's actually going to happen because it seems like everyone's kind of on a selling spree right now, and it looks to not be over quite yet. I think it'll take a while to break through 100,000, but if the negativity continues, if the government stays shut down, if Jerome Powell really doesn't cut rates because he doesn't have any data, then we are going to be in a lot of trouble. I've said this before, the shutdown might be good initially for crypto, But if it drags on for several weeks, it's going to be bad for all markets, and that includes crypto. And that's what we're seeing right now. I don't think these elections are the end of it. So I'll give it a 35-65 chance that this bull run is over and we're cooked. 65% meaning we're cooked, and 35% meaning, hey, it's not over and we could still run again. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.